Hey there, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I make this accent wall material. Hey, I'm back in the shop today to make some barnwood accent wall material. I'm going to show you the tools that I use as well as the process behind it. Now this video is going to be meant more for information and entertainment than it is a how-to video. And the reason for that is that the tools I'm using today, most people are not going to have in their shop. That does not mean that you can't do this though with simpler tools. That's how I started out doing it. And although it takes a little bit longer, you can yield the exact same results. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video so you can see some of this stuff installed on the walls. Let's get to it. The first thing I do is grab all of the short material that I have in the racks and leaning up in the walls in the shop and get it loaded up onto these rolling carts. After that, I grab my metal detector and scan every single board prior to running it into the resaw. This is not the entire amount of material that I'll be running for this particular job, it's just the start of it. More often than not, what I will do is get a batch going, and as I'm running a tally and keeping track of how much I need, I'll continually repeat this part of the process until I know that I have enough to get me through to the end of the job. Once I know the boards are free of metal, I will stack them up on this set of sawhorses until I get a fair amount to get started with. Once I get some material prepped and ready, I will swap out the blade on the bandsaw. This is a Grizzly 12-inch horizontal bandsaw, and it's the primary workhorse for the barnwood processing. I'll also empty the dust collection bin and make sure that any blast gates are open so I can start cutting some wood. Now that everything is set up and all the material is prepped, I can go ahead and start feeding the machine. This saw works in pretty much the same fashion as your typical bandsaw, the only difference being its size obviously, and the fact that everything is fed with a hydraulic conveyor belt and downward pressure is applied with the guide wheels. The only thing I have to do is grab them on the other side, discard the waste, and feed more in at the infeed. To reduce wear and tear on the blade and the resaw, I have a table saw set up to rip any oversized boards close to their final width. My final board dimensions are 3-inch and 5-inch, so the boards I'm resawing need to be at least a ½ inch wider as I will cut them to final width on the next step. This entire process is organized chaos. To maximize productivity, I try to get in a rhythmic, consistent pattern and to pace myself at the same time. This is part of a 1,000 square foot order that will take about a day and a half of just resawing. When this part is complete, this is what I'm left with. I move the cart of rough blanks over to the straight line rip saw, open up blast gates, hook up dust collection hoses, empty the collection bin again, and get set up to start the next step. This is the straight line rip saw. Its purpose is to put a perfectly straight edge on boards. With the help of a laser, which shows me where the blade will cut, I feed the boards in the machine for the first cut. Once it has a perfectly straight edge on one side, I run it through one more time, using the fence to put a perfectly straight parallel edge on the opposing side. This is by far one of my favorite tools to operate. There is something very satisfying about taking a board with ragged edges and making them usable once again. To maximize time and productivity, I spend as much time feeding material as I can, stacking up the finished boards until I have a pile to stack on the cart. In addition, I run all of one width first, setting the other width aside so I can keep the saw set as it is and maintain consistency and precision. Since I work alone, I have to focus on these aspects of production to not only save time on the process, but to save my body as well. I'll spend many hours doing this, and I need to pace myself so I can meet goals and deadlines. At this point, I am almost done with this step. Once complete, I can get set up for the final manufacturing process. Look at all of those pretty boards. The last step is to end cut any defects out of all these boards with the crosscut sled on the table saw. I built this sled specifically for this. It's 8 feet long and it has several stop blocks for different sizes. This batch is only getting end cut, but when I make this stuff for shipping, I cut it into 3 different lengths so I can fit it all in a box. That's the purpose of the stop blocks. You can see everything I have to cut behind me. To make sure I get a stack that won't fall over, I cut all of one width first. That way I can keep it tightly stacked. And it also helps for tallying and packaging in the end. I have a garbage can set up at the end of the sled so I can just push all the offcuts into it. To maximize efficiency, I'll cut at least 3 boards at a time, sometimes 4 or 5. And then I'll cut up the offcuts into small chunks so I can fit as much as I can into the can. It's all about productivity. I would say this is my least favorite part about this entire process. By this point, I'm pretty tired after a day's worth of resawing and straight line ripping, and the last thing I want to do is this, but it has to get done. And you can see here from the finished stack and the stack that I'm pulling from that I'm almost there. Now that I'm finished cutting, I can clean up the sled, blow it down, and put it away until I need it next time. I'll also blow off the table saw and move that to the back of the shop. After this, I'm going to move the cart of finished blanks over into the center of the shop and start doing a square foot tally and packaging them up for delivery. Once I've finished the cutting, I bring the empty cart over next to this one. I'll take all of the 5-inch widths and I separate them into rough lengths into 2 separate piles to make it easier for tallying. I'll do this again for the 3-inch widths later. Once I have them separated into the 2 piles, I'll grab an even amount of boards, stack them into a bundle, and shrink wrap them. Then I'll get a tally on the square footage and write that number on the shrink wrap. That makes it easy. Anytime I need to pull an order, I can grab exactly the square footage that I need. I'll do this exact same process on the 3-inch widths, and then this job is done. Now I always make more than I think I'm gonna need. So anything outside of the 1,000 square foot that's set aside for this order, I will go ahead and set in an A-frame rack that's in the corner of my shop. That way, anytime I have a customer that comes in, I have product on demand ready to go. And as promised, here's a final shot of this product installed on the walls in my shop. Hey, thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. I hope you found it informative, entertaining, and some value in it as well. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you can be the first one to know anytime a new video comes out. And if you're interested in knowing how I install this stuff, make sure to take a look at that video on the channel as well. And until next time, dream big, be positive, inspire others, and get out there and make something today. I'll see you on the next one.